Welcome to WagerTalk TV. I'm Kelly Stewart, at Kelly in Vegas on Twitter, joined by Marco D'Angelo, at Marco in Vegas, and Ralph Michaels, at CalSportsLV. All right, guys, I get a ton of questions all the time. People are so excited for football season that they want to jump the gun on betting preseason, and I have no help from them. You know what preseason I bet? Whatever you two tell me to. Because I am still trying to catch up on college football and focus on what matters to me. And preseason doesn't really matter because the stars play a quarter, and then all these other guys jump right in, and you're supposed to be paying attention when that stuff's irrelevant to me.
And for all those that bet the NFL, whatever you do in the NFL does not work in preseason.
Exactly.
That's rule number one. It is like, okay, pretend this is the NFL regular season and preseason is lacrosse. You handicap them completely
and
differently.
And that's why I just don't waste my time when I have you two. Moral of the story. So it just makes more sense to watch a preseason game here and there.
I guess I should have said Australia rules football instead of lacrosse. That would have been a little closer.
I mean, maybe rugby. Okay. All right, Marco.
It's almost as diverse, though.
Marco, I'll start with you. So, as I mentioned, you have these teams, and we know that Belichick, for example, doesn't care about preseason. And then you have new head coaches that have never been head coaches.
They went 3-1 last year.
Oh,
so
I'm so sorry.
Again,
sorry, 3-1.
So even when you think, yes, he doesn't care about preseason, there are times where you win games. So
that is the first thing to start with, because coaches have different agendas. There's coaches that don't care at all, as you say, and there's our coaches that want to play to win. The ones that want to play to win, our tendencies are going to be more the newer coaches, because they're taking over a program. They want to instill a winning attitude. They want to hit the ground running, so to speak. But where you can get a lot, what I do with the preseason, is read the post-game articles, watch the press conferences that the guys have. Head coaches have their press conferences every week. Listen to what they're saying, because the preseason is about the only time of the year that they're ever going to tell you the truth, okay? All right, regulars...
not always,
okay,
but well, they've tended to lie. Andy Reid's the worst.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go, Andy Reid.
So,
Andy Reid, you can forget anything he is. But they're going to tell you, hey, our running game sucked last week. We need to work on it. Well, when a coach makes a statement like that, you know they are going to work on it. So that might affect you how you're going to look at a total in the game the next week, because they're going to make a effort, a big effort to get the blocking down, everything else. Maybe they got some new offensive linemen that they got to work in, and they've changed positions, whatever. That's what they're going to do. The newer coaches, they want to get off to a good start. Look at some of those coaches. And again, we look at the history and past, and I'm sure we're going to have a preseason guide from Ralph. You do stuff every year with different
that'll clearly
Ralph
be
doesn't
up
have
in
any time. He's too busy moving. Sorry, guys, I got to throw in a little shade when I can. All right, Ralph. Okay, give us some tips on what you think is really important to be looking for in the preseason.
Well, this could be an hour long. QB rotations. Obviously, how long a quarterback's going to play and when they're playing. QB battles. When you have two quarterbacks that are new to a team are battling, and it doesn't have to be the starter. Battles are much better when they're the second and third string, because you may have a guy playing the first half for one game and then the second half for a second game. That's what you want. You want quarterbacks playing a long period of time. I would rather have a third stringer playing a full game than I would a guy playing a starter, a second string, a third string, and a fourth string, because you're going to get continuity and he's going to get into a rhythm. Teams that need good performances. The Browns were 7-1 in the preseason the last 2 years, coming off the 0-16, 1-15 years. They don't need to win this year. We'll have to see what happens. Freddie Kitchens' first year. Coaches, you talked about coaches. Mike Zimmer and Pete Carroll have been the elite preseason coaches. Those are teams I would probably never play against a Mike Zimmer or a Pete Carroll team. There may be a certain situation that comes up, but very rarely would they make the list. Short weeks for scheduling. You have time sometimes when a team has 8 days between games against a team that has 4 days between games. The team with 4 days between games is not going to play their star players back-to-back games. They're going to sit them either 1 week or the next. You have to find out. Teams that make 3 time zones changes. I don't know if there are any this year. I didn't get into them. But when you have a team traveling from East Coast, I remember Detroit last year or 2 years ago flew into Oakland or Seattle that day and flew out right after the game. They were there for 6 hours, and the game took 3 hours. Those are the teams you want to play against. Cuts. it's changed a little now because the way they have the cuts now, they go down one period the next. It used to be you had to look after week 3. Those teams that cut 15 guys, week 4 you had so many fewer players to play, you had to play important guys. You know, and one thing is, I talked about quarterbacks, having a quarterback that plays longer. You know, this is a situation, I'll just jump up and things you look for. Denver was a prime example a few years back where no matter what happened with Denver, they played their O-lines in segments. The 1s always played together, the 2s played together, the 3s played together. If you find those teams, those are the teams you want to jump on week 4. If you have an O-line that's played part of the game week 1, part of the game week 2, maybe only a quarter week 3, and is playing the entire game week 4, I don't care who the quarterback is. When you have the O-line playing all 5 starters, you're going to win that game if they've played in segments. So, you know, those are some shots. I'll have more in a preseason guide, and I'm sure we'll be doing a couple more videos breaking down some teams and records and coaches and scenarios that we'll do. But just those are the basic things to think differently when you're handicapping preseason.
And a couple other things to add on to what Ralph's talking about. To go to the quarterback rotations, understand, as you said, if it's a true quarterback battle, they're going for the number 1 starter. Those guys are going to get equal time to see who emerges, but they're also going to flip who starts with the units. One week you'll have, you know, quarterback A playing with the first unit. The next week, it's going to be quarterback B playing with the first unit. So don't look at the stats and say, oh, quarterback B had big numbers, you know, but he also was going against the reserves in the second half. But that can give you advantages for first half betting or second half betting if you're doing it. The other thing to remember, week 3 is always dress rehearsal week. That's going to be the truest week of the preseason because most coaches, that's where they're going to put their starters in the longest, and nobody really game plans in preseason, but if they ever do, you're going to get more of a game plan for week 3. With that said, moving to week 4, what you want to look at, a team that you talked about that battles with the quarterbacks that actually the second and third string quarterback, that is a good situation for week 4 because what ends up happening, you're not going to carry 3 quarterbacks on your roster, good quarterbacks. You can't pay 3 quarterbacks. A lot of times, week 4, they will use as an audition week to try to trade the odd man out to get something for him. And that guy's going to get serious time. And as you said, if it's a team where he's playing with the unit that he's been playing with because they're going to play the second unit more in the 4th game, that is a distinct advantage. Those are the things I look at.
2 last things. Week 4, when you have quarterback injuries, there's been some instances the last few years where a quarterback's been in camp one day and he's played all week 4. That team's not going to win and the game's going to go under, period. And there's been a few of those, and the lines just don't get adjusted.
Yeah.
It's crazy how you can just find that value. Sacks. If you have a defensive coordinator that's going to blitz in the preseason, that team's going to win, period. You look at how many sacks a team had the previous year, you look at who their DC is, and then you look if they have sacks again this year. And lastly, the name of the quarterback doesn't matter. If a quarterback's been on the same team, the same system for multiple playoff years, I mean, for New England, so many times we had Brady, then we had Garoppolo, and then we had a third guy, and they were all on the team for all those years. So the seconds and thirds knew exactly what they're doing in the same systems. So in my preseason guide, I do list every quarterback that threw preseason passes on that team for the last 3 years. So you could see the progression, what quarterbacks are in camp, and how long they've been with that same OC and same DC. So I also list OCs and DCs. So continuity from one year to the next with a system is something that you look for in those second, third, and fourth quarterbacks that you have, because most teams will play 4 quarterbacks in the preseason now just because you're seeing less and less. McVay last year sat everyone. More coaches are starting to do that as well. So it changes every year and what you have to look for.
All right, great stuff, guys. Get $25 in wager bucks added to your account after your first purchase at WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com.